Hey, what is up guys, my name is BDoffy and this is my how to play RP Law guide. Originally I was going to go over the deck list, but come to think of it, I already have my previous video where we explained the deck list, so I'm going to be skipping that part and I'm just going to go basically into how to play the deck. So if you want to see how I built my list and how I decided to play RP Law in terms of my deck list, you can basically look at the video right here and you can basically go and watch that video because the video is going to be too long otherwise, and I don't think any person in the world is going to do that. So yeah. So thank you very much for supporting me, and I would just get into how to play RP Law now. Hey, what is up guys, my name is BDoffy and today we're going to be reviewing the RP Law matchup guide. This is kind of like how you play RP Law. I will, basically this is like the next episode compared to my earlier one, which you guys seem to love, and upon demand, I am now going to be going into a bit of a more extensive guide. I don't know how long this will be. I'll be honest, I don't think it's going to be a short video, so buckle up. I will do my best to kind of give you kind of all the knowledge that I've gathered since playing RP Law in the EBO1 format. So if you guys have any questions by the end of this video, or if you guys just like the video, leave a like, subscribe, let me know in the comments. I really do love your feedback, guys, like you did in the last video. It was basically what I've been trying to achieve, and the last video really did well in that. So I think what I want from you guys the most is just to let me know if you like this sort of content. If you like this sort of content, you can push me and pivot me into a way where I can continue doing the content you guys want. I'm sorry for the delay in videos again. You guys know the deal, right? It's basically just finding time to actually do all this. So yeah, without further ado, this is my RP Law guide. So how to play RP Law and why you should play RP Law. So just for the first few bits here, I did make a sort of a kind of a thing here, right? So you guys can kind of see along with me here and like why you should play RP Law and blah blah blah. So statistically speaking, the RP Law was in the Eastern meta was probably one of the most prominent decks. Some might say is the best deck in format. I don't really agree with you for a number of factors. RP Law is very prone to inconsistency, so RP Law can easily break. So with that in mind, and other stall matchups like Bonney, Monkey D. Luffy, Black Yellow Luffy, and even Enel itself, right? If they do decide to basically starve you, that's the word I want to use. The deck can really crumble. The good thing about RP Law is that if you find the draw engine fast enough, then that's not really a problem, and they have to pivot, right? We'll go into more detail into this, but basically, why would you want to play RP Law? RP Law is, without a doubt in my mind, I would say top 3 in the OP07 meta. It's very good. The thing it lacks is consistency, and sometimes it really depends on its rage use and its screens and stuff that it can draw. So that's pretty much what it needs. But NL really, I mean, RP Law really struggles with that. But besides that, it's really fine. Yeah. So we'll be going into the into how the deck is played and stuff like that. The deck is very interesting to play in the sense that it's the thing is that it's hyper aggro, and it can also bottom deck, and it can only do bottom deck 1 card, so it can't really do more. But what you could do is you kind of find a way to clear board while still maintaining aggro and maintaining your board. So for example, you can like bottom deck 1 card and like an active card, and then you can swing it to a rested card. So that's essentially you dealing with two things at once. Well, anyways, so yeah, if RP Law is your vibe, highly recommend you try out this deck, even trying out on the sim before you buy the cards, because RP Law is very fucking expensive. It has at least like 4 Gordons if you're gonna play 8, which I don't really recommend. It also has starter 4 the Queen, starter deck 5 Ein, and starter deck 10. It has a lot of these decks which aren't cards which aren't really found in normal boxes, it has like OP01, stuff like that, but the core cards really are not in main decks, except for maybe Kid and Killer, Kid, and Bonclay, basically. But there are other cards, right? But you know what I mean. It's a very expensive deck, and it's certainly not going to be cheap in any way. So in the terms of how much it costs, it's going to be quite the costly deck, I'll be honest, right? And the thing that you really need to know is if this thing is going to be, is this deck going to be the right one for you? And the very good thing about RP Law is it teaches you the fundamentals of the game in a way where you kind of have to go through all the basics, like whether you should swing for board, how is your life, you need to assess your board state, you need to hand map, you need to basically understand that how you're going to play your hand and like the sequencing of the hand. So for example, if you have like a 3-card turn, right, you need to see how you're going to sequence those 3 cards, what are you going to do, where do you swing first, do you do this, do you do that, and so on, right? So it really forces you to think, and it really makes you kind of like realize what your priority is for the turn. And that is a very great thing as a player who wants to learn the game and kind of wants to understand the game as well, right? So I pulled up this thing. It's the matchup spread on how the matchups and how many tournaments every deck won in the format. We're not counting Sakazuki because it got banned midway for OP07, and we just didn't get it flat out. So that's something that we need to consider. I did get this from a Reddit user called the Asian Yen Bear. So thank you very much for providing this via Reddit. And we can see here that Enel is the top 2 deck. I don't agree with the statistics in the sense that now that Sakazuki is gone, we kind of have a different meta shift. But that doesn't mean that it changed a lot. I just think that Monkey D. Luffy is probably the best deck in format at the moment. Which is a significant jump from the Asian meta, but obviously we're not counting in Sakazuki, so that's probably the reason why. Everything else still stays pretty much the same. I don't think Katakuri should have won all those tournaments, especially in this format, but we'll dive into Sakazuki as well, Katakuri as well, and we'll talk about matchup. But yeah, so that's pretty much it here, and we're just gonna dive in step by step here. So we're gonna go through the deck list card by card, and we're final thing I want to touch into now is just the matchups. So I will put timestamps for all the matchups going first and going second. So this is basically this part where you're gonna skip. If you're going to be skipping, please leave a like and subscribe. I really much appreciate it, and I'll see you very soon. So our first matchup that we're gonna be covering is Yamato. Yamato is a I'm just gonna leave the card here, so if you want to see the card, just basically read it. I'm just gonna keep on rambling as I go, right? So you always want to go first against Yamato. Yamato basically is very annoying for Law, just because the fact that they play Hody and they have the leader skill, which is kind of a really tough thing to handle as RP Law, because obviously you want to play blockers, but he can also rest them in a very aggressive way. So like it's going to be very hard for you the longer the game drags on, the more harder the matchup is going to be for you to like finish the game. So go first, find blockers. Ideally you find your Shiraya. Your Shiraya is going to be insane this matchup. It completely walls the idea of Yamato. Whenever she sees the Shiraya, it's going to be like super detrimental to her to try to remove it as fast as she can. So it kind of forces her to make the decision like, hey, do you want to kill this thing, or do you want to like, do pass basically. So yeah, you want a hard mulligan for Shiraya. You're gonna absolutely need this unless you have like another blocker that you're comfortable with playing. But yeah. What I want to stress very, very hard is that you try to avoid 0 life as much as you humanly can, just because of Hody Jones. It's not going to be like very easy, I assure you, but it's manageable. Like if you have your Shirayas, you're probably gonna be chilling for most of the game. Like you only use Shiraya to block whenever Yamato swings, basically, and then you just clear board with the rest, right? Bottom deck, anything over 5k, anything that could possibly fucking swing into, you want to block or kill it as fast as you can. Key cards you want to block bottom deck is Okiku, because Okiku gives them a life and you want to raise them down to 0 life. So whenever you're gonna play your cards, swing first and make sure like to swing numbers which she is favorable to take. So just swing 7s essentially. So whenever she triggers like Okiku off of life, you just raise max that shit or you fire fizz that shit and you get the fuck off the board, because you want to make them in a position where they can only swing with leader unless they play a rush card, which would be Hody. But if they play a Hody, chances are, you know, they're gonna basically like swing at you maximum for 8, which is a fine number. Like maybe 9 or 10 if they use like a Maru on themselves and attach a Dawn, but we're speaking in extreme cases, but you know what I mean. Yeah, if it's Fortress, ideally, if it's Fortress Yamato, ideally want to save removal for 8 cost kid, because if 8 cost kid sticks for 1 turn, they play 9 cost Zoro, and then you're fucking doomed. Or they play Chain Dofis, which is fucking AIDS, by the way. Like, holy shit, bro. Like, the amount of times I failed to like remove 8 cost kid and then I just see 9 cost Zoro and 10 Dofi, 10 Dofi, 10 Dofi, 10 Dofi is I don't want that shit on my game, bro. Get the fuck out of here, you know? But that's pretty much it though. Like if you lose the coin toss, you go second. You kinda have to make do with whatever you get. You can like play Ain or play Shuraya, Shambles, play Shachi, which is acceptable, but you kinda wanna be like, hey, you don't wanna swing in my face, I have Shuraya, so just don't do anything, please, kind of thing. But you know, like essentially try to keep them from doing their game plan by playing blockers. The more blockers you play, the more she can swing into you, the safer you are, and you just basically need to play around Hody every turn once 7 Dawn hits, because once the moment that 7 Dawn hits, you're cooked. If you're going to be like with no blockers or 0 life, you just lose basically. But yeah, so my next matchup that I'm going to be covering is Lucci. Now, Lucci is quite the deck. Lucci, you want to go first. The key factor... So this is a favorable matchup for you. And it's a bit weird, though. Because like it's only favorable if they don't see their stage in time. Because if they don't see their stage, they have to like -2... with something else, because the stage is kind of insane. I'm gonna pull up so the thing is, whenever you're gonna play against Lucci, they want to play this card, which is called Enel's Lobby, and Enel's Lobby is like a great eruption every turn, except they don't draw a card, which is still kind of stupid. But like if they see this thing early game, like if they play this shit on curve, it's not unwinnable, right? The game is very much still winnable. It's just going to be like a lot harder. So like let's say the matchup is 70-30, right? I'm just throwing numbers. If it's 70-30, it's probably like around 50-50, right? But right, so it probably goes like, okay, so if it's 70-30 with Enel's Lobby, it's like probably 55-45 maybe. I'm just throwing numbers, but I just want you to like kind of feel like how the game would feel if they just see their stage immediately. The kind of thing you want to focus on when you're playing against Lucci is you want to bottom deck cards that bottom deck things, KO things. So like your Lucci, your Kakus, anything that can cycle as well, like so even 5-cost Sabos. But see, since there's a lot of targets, you kind of want to give them something like of a priority. So I would say priority goes Lucci into Kaku into Sabo, but it really depends on like how you want to play, right? But they can always replay them. The ideal reason why you want to bottom deck Lucci is because it's playable. It can be played from trash by playing like straight up Spandine. Spandine is like going to be a very annoying card. I wouldn't say bottom deck this, right? If there's no targets, then you can bottom deck Spandine. But like Lucci is just going to be like an insanely good card, and it's the amount of value that thing gets. Plus it's a 6k, so like 1 Dawn attached is 7. You have to react to 7k swing, which is fucking stupid. So like bottom deck it, get out of the way, and you're kind of done. they're going to, if the game takes long enough, they're going to like cycle through their deck. And if they don't realize it, maybe they like bottom deck two of them. It never happened to me, but like, you know, it's like something that can happen. What is a very important about RP law in general is that one thing you need to understand is dawn management, right? Dawn management is very important because you kind of want to do your thing and you want to do it comfortably, but you don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. So like, let's say you have a way to remove the Lucci and you're at 4 dawn, you play your Gordon, you play your turn, and then you're gonna bottom deck Gordon, you buy a 3k to Lucci, and then you minus 3 dawn and you go to 1 dawn. It's not very good. Like, fine, okay, you removed Lucci, but now you're going to be 3 dawn next turn, and why the fuck would I want to be a 3 dawn? I'd rather take the swing and go to 6 dawn, and then I do it, because then I'm already at 3 dawn, next turn I go to 5. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's these kind of things that you need to kind of like learn as more as you play. You just don't really want to bottom deck things for the sake of doing them, unless like they're detrimental and like, okay, fuck, I gotta do it. I think the comfortable range for every matchup is going to be hovering over your like 4 to 6 dawn turns, because RP Law doesn't really do a lot with dawn except like play cards and maybe swing like 5, 6, maybe 7. So like, you know, like you're fine with just playing with 4 to 6 dawn, like that's fine. The more you have, the more the merrier. But like, you know what I mean? Like, try to stay in your range when like whenever you're gonna start the next turn, you only have like 6 dawn or like 7 dawn. When you end your turn, you kind of want to be like 4 to 6 dawn is what I'm saying. So yeah, whenever you're gonna play into Lucci, you kind of want to be like pressuring as much life as you can. We'd rather swing into Lucci and then bottom deck something, because that way we're still removing board and we're also pressuring. If we're pressuring, he has to react to you by giving you hand cards. Giving you hand cards is stuff in his trash, cards that he won't be able to use against you, right? So if you're going to like swing a shit ton into him, he's going to give you a Spandine, he's going to give you a Spandem, he's going to give you a Khalifa, he's going to give you a 2Ks, whatever it is, it's less cards for him, and it's probably going to make it tougher for him to play his turn or play his removal, right? Lucci can't be used for counter because it's not a counter card, but you know what I'm saying. It just makes it very hard for him. So whenever you're gonna finish your game, this applies to every matchup, but it's kind of something I'll be saying a lot is whenever you're gonna end your game, you wanna have something like a rush card, like you wanna have your Kid Killers or your Zoros, just so because you kind of want to put them in a false sense of security, because when you're swinging out your dawn and you're gonna like swing 7 with your Sanji and you're gonna swing 7 with your Kid and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden you're with 0 dawn, and then you shambles, you play Kid Killer, you attach a dawn that you got from your Kid, now you're swinging 8 and most of the time it's gonna win. You see what I'm saying? It's like these things that you need to keep in mind is whenever you're gonna end game, you just do it in a way where you kind of like overwhelm them with the amount of hits that you're gonna be doing. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Lucci. Okay, so our next deck here is Boa Hancock. Now, from what I've seen, Boa isn't going to be as popular, so I'm just gonna cover it for the sake of covering it. Whenever you're going to play Boa, you want to go first. Ideally, you want to pick a more aggro-themed mindset when you're going to go for the game, because you want to race them down to before they can chain their Tenko's Kaidos. You kind of want to have like your big swing turns is when they don't have really anything to kind of react to in terms of like board and stuff like that. So whenever they're like low and stuff, you want just a low and dawn or no dawn active or no board is really your best turn to like swing into Boa Hancock. You also need to keep in mind that they run Red Rocks and Raging Tigers. They pretty much run the same kind of like list that Doffy does. It's basically the same package because they're both 7 warlords, so they kind of like run into together really awkwardly there. But basically, if you're gonna be playing against Boa, you're probably gonna be playing like Doffy, but just Boa has a harder time going into contesting boards with you, where Doffy just like chains probably like 4 cards in a turn if they hit the combo. Boa can't really do that. If she can, it's going to be really expensive for them, because that's like 4 cards out their hand. Doffy does it from the deck, so it's less cost effective for Doffy. So yeah, 6 down Boa is probably the card that you want to really be careful about. So you can't really just play your raise maxes the way you want to. You just gotta be wary that this thing is existing, and they play a pretty big number. I think they play like 3 or 2, so it's very likely that they're gonna see their Boas. So it's really something you need to be wary of. And once again, they do have an insane board control potential with Raging Tigers. I think they run like 4 ofs and like Red Rocks. Red Rocks is mainly for trigger. If they find that shit off trigger, it's gonna hurt us, because they bottom deck anything, I think, with Red Rock. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Let me see exactly the counter. I think it's like 6. They bottom deck anything. That's like the thing I'm trying to mention here. Something also very important. Oh, it's bottom deck 4 cost, which is basically 3/4 of our deck. But anyways, since this is blue, you need to be careful that you don't have a really big hand size. So it's always like something that could be basically like something that they can do against you. So it's something that you always want to keep in mind, that like this thing exists and stuff like that. So yeah, basically be wary of putting. If you are aware of putting, then you're probably gonna have a great time anyways. But yeah, just hyper aggro, don't lose focus, use your cost reduction to bottom deck something, and then you can like swing into board with big numbers. You can also use a Gordon into like a higher cost card just to swing into it easier. That's something that you could do. But anyways, yeah, be careful of putting 6 Dawn Boa and the triggers, and you're pretty much going to be fine. But yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not really much else to the matchup really. You just really need to raise them before they hit 10 Dawn and they start chaining their 10 drop Kaidos, because if they start doing that, that's probably game right there. Like if the second Kaido drops and they're still at a healthy life total with a good amount of cards in hand, you probably just lost the game. But they're prone to bricking, but probably chances are you lost the game. So next deck is Purple Luffy. Purple Luffy is quite the card, actually. Purple Luffy is a fucking nightmare. Where is he? Where's the man? Purple Luffy is a mono purple. You know what that means? You want to know what mono purple means for us? It means that they have access to Magellan. And not just Magellan, but Magellan. Let's talk about Magellan. Magellan, if they play that shit on curve, it is going to be a fucking nightmare. Because they go second, or they go first, they play it on turn 3, whatever the fucking reason is. They played this on turn 3, you're at -1 Dawn. All of a sudden, you can't play Kid on your Kid turn, because they just negged it on for you. It is fucking annoying. If they see this fucking Magellan, it's probably game, honestly. Like, this thing is fucking insane. Like, it's kind of a hard matchup. If they see their curve, if they see at least, like, Magellan and Poly, you are in for a very tough game. If they see Poly, Magellan, Poly, Kaido, I'd probably scoop. Yeah, I mean, I've won games, but like, yeah, Magellan, Poly, Kaido is a fucking hard game to come back from, I'll be honest. But yeah, if they play double Magellan, that is insanely backbreaking. I don't think I've ever had that happen to me, but it is it kind of ruins your curve, so you kind of need to be careful. I guess you can play around it by playing Iron or Bonclay, but bro, the deck is so fast that like it goes up to 10. It's just so much faster than what we're trying to do, so it's just gonna be very hard for us to like contest with them. You know, it's always gonna be a face race. You want to like get them in a position where they really can't afford the Luffy effect at any point in the game, because if they go, okay, so there's like, for people who don't know, like Magellan, we've seen Magellan and Poly basically pops a 4 cost, which is going to be like most of our things that we're going to swing with. It also pops Kid and Killer for free, it pops Shiraya, it pops fucking anything really, I mean, except your 5 costs, right? But like, it's still a problem, you know, because okay, you know, Polly doesn't pop 5 costs. You know, my kid is safe. Is it though? Because they have Kaido, and Kaido is a nuisance. It is a big body, and they can get that shit on turn 4, I think. Right? They go to 1. No, they go to 2, then go to 5. 2, 4. Yeah, like turn 4 Kaido is just gonna be insane, and you're probably not gonna come back from that. So, yeah, try to go for phase, be fast as you can. You know, get the shit away from you as fast as you can. But yeah, pretty much one-sided matchup. If you go second, it's probably gonna be a very tough game for you, especially if they get, especially if they get Magellan on curve for them. Then they just get the big tempo swing. And it's just gonna be a very hard game, nonetheless. It's gonna be hard nonetheless, right? But they're like prone to bricking just as much as we are, so maybe it's not that bad, but it's pretty bad. It's not that bad, but it's up there. But yeah, so our next leader that we're going to be talking about is Black Yellow Luffy. Black Yellow Luffy is still probably our easiest matchup of them all. I would say, since Katakuri won't be played as much, I think Black Yellow Luffy is probably still our easiest matchup. That is open for discussion, but I still do think that it's probably one of our most comfortable matchups to say. It is a 50-50, so obviously take that with a grain of salt, but I still do think I performed the best games against Black Yellow Luffy. But yeah. So, you always want to go first. You want to get your swings out as fast as you can. Your ideal curve would be Zorojuro into Kid, Gordon something, Shambles, play Iron, or play Penguin. Then when you go to your 7 Dawn turn or your 8 Dawn turn, you want to see if you have a Law in hand. If you have a Law in hand, you play that stuff, play that shit so you can like rip more cards out their hand. So that is something you want to do. You ideally want to find Sabo, removal for Sabos, because if the more Sabos you bottom deck, the harder it is going to be for him to defend himself. What I like to do is I kind of keep them at a 1 life or ideally 2 life, because if you're just gonna set up your board and then he has nothing to like go to 0 with, then you can have like a big board and you can like spring insane numbers whilst he's at 1 life. Because if he's at 1 life, then he can't go above 5k. So it's just going to be swinging a barrage of hits, which require a lot of cards from hand. And they don't run like a lot of 2ks. So most of the time, he's going to be giving you 1ks. And more than 1ks means less cards in hand, less things to play with, so on, so on, right? I mean, he has 2ks, right? He has the Hioris, he has the Flampes, he has Surus if he plays Surus. But you get the gist of what I'm saying, right? So, I would hard mulligan for 1 Zoro and 1 Kid and Killer, but you kind of also want to see your Zorojuro and your Kid. So, you know, it's kind of like how you feel. You just need to evaluate your hand, see if you want to keep one or the 2, right? It's kind of like a pick your poison kind of thing. So yeah. Ideal tech cards would be 3 cost Rush Zoro, but you really don't need to, because Kid and Killer is kind of better. But if you want to see like more rush against the matchup, if you're like kind of struggling, I guess so. The thing is with the Black Yellow Luffy is you either win on turn 4, or he's gonna get to eventually play down Moria, and then he starts chaining the Thunderbolt Luffy that we talked about, but I won't go into that again. We've touched it briefly already. Yeah, this thing is like basically what makes the matchup 50-50. If he doesn't see these, you're just straight up chilling, so you're fine. Yeah, on to our next matchup, and I believe it is our one of the last few going first, I think. No, we have a bit more. Yeah, so Blue Luffy, you want to go first. You have to apply as much pressure as you can, because you need to keep in mind that they have Red Rock and Raging Tigers as well. But the thing with Dofi is that he can kind of build the board fast, and he can very much contest board with you through his leader skill. So he can, and I've seen it happen, is they play like Jinbei from hand, play Weevil, swing with Doffy, play another Jinbei, then they play a Weevil, or they play anything else, right? And that's the 4 with 7 Dawn. He played 16 Dawn worth of cards. Yeah. And they also swung 7 at you, by the way, just in case you didn't count that. So, yeah, interesting matchup. Quite hard, but it's not impossible. I would say it's still somewhat favored into for RP but he can very much out-tempo you and kind of outpaces. You also need to be careful, because if they're playing the win me list, it might be a bit harder, but I think Duffy Kaido is still better. Kind of. It depends on how the match goes, but I think in the later game, Wimi Doffy probably struggles a bit later in the game, whereas 10-drop Kaido just kind of makes the matchup a lot harder for you, because that's more cards in hand, probably more counter. So that's something you need to kind of keep in mind. Like I said, with most matchups though, we want to hover 4 to 6 Dawn. The more the better actually here, because you want to swing bigger numbers sometimes, so we can try to force more cards from their hand. So that is something that you kind of need to consider. I was going to go over Zoro, but Zoro isn't really played in OP07, so we're just going to skip over Zoro. So yeah. Same thing with Reiju. I guess Reiju's kind of playable now with Porsche, but it's just as easy it was before, so I'm just gonna skip Reiju as well. However, the next leader that I won't be skipping is our main man Katakuri. Where is Katakuri? Our main man Katakuri. So Katakuri is a very annoying leader, as some of you may know. He's still my goat though. Fucking love you, bro. Shout out to my man up in the heavens right now. He's dead in OP07, but some people are still coping, and that's not me. So, Katakuri is a very, very annoying matchup. They do have a lot of triggers. They kind of basically depend on their triggers. So, for the love of God, just go first. First of all, you want a mulligan for removal and ramp mix. 5 cost kit is very helpful here, and also Bonclays, but you don't want to keep a hand just for Bonclays, because your early game is going to struggle if you keep them. So you still want to see your mix and match. You want to see your Gordon, you want to see your Kid, you want to see your Zorojuro, and you want to see your Hines, so on and so on. So, one very important thing that you will need to keep in mind when you're playing against Katakuri is you want to swing before you play anything, because they play Thunderbolts and stuff, and they also trigger things into play. And if you leader skill or play a card and one of them is a Thunderbolt and you lose that momentum, it might be just enough momentum that he needed to stabilize and go into his 10 Dawn turn and chain moms, and that's where you're probably going to lose. So swing with your board first, get your swings done first before you play something. And once he triggers Kikunojo or he triggers fucking Tracker or whatever they play now, because I haven't looked at a fucking catalyst in like months now. Yeah. You want to keep your Gordons for your Kikunojos, because those Kikunojos give him life. If you give him life, that means it's triggers, and you don't want triggers. 7 cost mom is whatever. 8 cost Kata, I don't think they play it anymore. What you want to do though is you want to play your Bonclays on the turn that you feel like he is going to play his big bodies. We touched on this before in the earlier video. You basically want to play all these out on your on his 8 Dawn turn or his 9 Dawn turn. Turns where like this is detrimental for him, that he needs to like basically play the game, right? So yeah, pretty much it though. Try to negate them from their triggers. You can also like keep them at a cool like 1 life total, I guess now, or 2 life actually for Amaru, because now they don't have reject anymore, so it's whatever. Yeah, try to keep them at 2 life and end the game from there. What I used to do is I keep them at 1 life, because I don't really care if they Amaru, and then because if they're gonna Amaru, they can't Big Mom and I'm probably still in a situation where I can just win the game regardless, so I don't really care about it. But there are situations where you need to be wary of a Mario. But yeah, that's pretty much it though. If they play 10 mom on your Bonkley, then the game's probably won from there. I don't even need to carry on from there. Yeah, I did add some more notes here, but I kind of went over them already. So when I'm looking here, I'm just basically looking at my notes just to see I don't skip anything. Green Bonney. Our next leader is going to be one of my favorite actually leader from OP07. This is Bonney. You want to go first. You want to keep your removal for bigger drops, but that doesn't mean you don't use them on the smaller ones. If you feel like he's going to be building up a big board, or he's going to play his Cavendish. Cavendish is actually a very good card to keep in mind of. Cavendish probably makes the deck inclined to be more aggro, while it still does what it wants to do. So I would say you want to bottom deck Cavendish first, then probably Roche second. And if you can have everything rested, you can probably Fire Fist the Hawkins. I'm going to show you Hawkins now. Yeah, so if you have everything rested, and then you Fire Fist the Hawkins, and you go to bottom deck it, Basil Hawkins can't really activate, and that's how you kind of play around the Hawkins. That is how it works. This matchup is favored, but remember, if your opponent has one Dawn active, you need to basically assume you have one less swing that turn. So if you have like 6 cost body, and you're gonna swing with your leader, and he has an active Dawn, it's better just swing with the leader, with the blocker for 1 Dawn, and you swing 7, because he's still gonna rest something else. So you might as well use your blocker. Like, okay, fair enough. I guess you could do the argument that, okay, what if he doesn't rest my blocker? Well, you don't know what he's going to do, right? So I guess you can kind of bite the bullet and do it. I think it's still better you just swing with your 6k, because he's probably going to rest it because there's a blocker and he wants it to be rested. So when he swings into you, there's not the blocker in the way. That's how I see it, but I don't know. I feel like that's the good idea though. But yeah, matchup definitely favored. You need to always remember that you want them in a position to be threatened, to go for a big board, and they'd rather just play one boss monster, and you have a way to overcome that kind of thing. You know, if they you have something to answer it, then all the better. But like, they can't really play their 8 cost kid. I mean, they can play their 8 cost kid with like 5 swings on your board, or like a decent amount of swings on your board. But then you have Fire Fist, or you have Gordon, and it turns from 8k to a 5k. You can swing 7s into it. That's 2 hand cards. You see what I mean? It's like these things that you need to keep in mind. You need to basically make it hard for him to kind of like keep his board active, and you kind of want to play his game, play his own game, for example, in terms of like board control. It's harder than it sounds. I'll be honest. I'm kind of making it sound easy, but it's not easy. It's a very tedious matchup, but it is possible to do what I'm saying. But yeah, key cards are going to be your power reduction here and draw cards. Also, forecast law is going to be insane here. Like, you need to see this thing, especially in the mid game where he has like the most cards in hand. But yeah. Okay, so I will actually review this deck list. Okay, so Nami is kind of a unique matchup, right? As some of you may know, Nami is quite the deck in this format, as well as any other format ever since it came into existence. It's very trigger reliant in terms of how the game will pace through. What I mean by this is that there are triggers where it just draw cards, or it draw card, trash card, and stuff like that. So it's gonna be very annoying if they're gonna sack triggers. You know, it makes the game that much harder. But yeah, it's something to keep wary of. It is something that can definitely happen. So just keep that in mind. What I like to do is I go first here in this matchup, and you want to swing fast and wide. So I don't think this matchup is as any other matchup with RP Law. It's not the case where you swing 9s always. You want to swing big numbers. You want to force her to use her Dawn because you're going to swing so much and she wants to counter so much. Countering for her means that she's going to use Dawn. If she doesn't have like one Gavels in hand, she's going to use her Luff beams. Okay, she may draw a card, but that's 2 Dawn and you have 4 more swings coming. She will eventually start to take life because if she keeps countering everything, she's going to run out of hand cards. If she has no hand cards, she can't play her thing. It's a process that comes over and you'll reap the rewards as you go later on in the game. But I don't think I've lost a game against Nami in this set. I don't think I've lost to a Nami this set. You bottom deck anything you literally can possibly bottom deck. Because when you bottom deck, you're adding cards into her deck, obviously, and it makes the matchup a bit harder for her to like kind of, you know, like pivot through, and eventually, obviously, she's gonna get to her Kais again and stuff, and she's gonna do her thing again. But you want to make her deck as big as possible, because if she doesn't have a way to do it, and she's about to hit at the bottom of the deck where you bottom deck your cards and you're swinging, she's not gonna be able to use those cards. So it's kind of like this thing where you kind of like force her to like burn her hand size as fast as she can. In the earlier turns, though, if you see her being at 0 Dawn or a very small amount of Dawn, like 1 or 2, that's the biggest important turn you want to swing with. You don't want to play anything, just swing and take life, because you want to get down to 2 life so your Kid and Killers come online and you want to swing harder as much as you can, right? So yeah, it's very rare where she's going to be at 0 Dawn. I don't think it happens often anymore, but if it happens, that's your turn to like, okay, I need to fucking swing this turn now, you know, it's that sort of thing. Your tech cards here is 2-cost Sanji, honestly. I mean, obviously, rush cards and Iron Shiraya and those cards are going to be important, but the most important thing here is 2-cost Sanji, because Nami's never going to hit you, so you want to draw your own cards, and Sanji does a good job. I would probably take 2 cards and call it a day for Sanji, because then she might just try to fucking kill you, and that's something that I would probably never lift myself down again if she does that. So yeah, keep it in mind. Don't overdo it on Sanji, because you can easily lose the game by just doing that. So yeah. Our next deck is going to be the mirror, actually. You want to go second here. So the thing with this matchup is whoever sees the most amount of draw wins, honestly, because if you draw more cards and you have advantage most of the time, you're just probably gonna win. Like Reiju is whoever sees the most Reijus here probably wins the game like 80% of the time. But yeah, you want to go second. If they go first, it's whatever. I mean, I don't really care if they go first. I actually prefer going second, because then I can swing 5. They take a life anyways. Then I play Iron Shambles, play Shachi, and then we have 2 things on board, and they can only really bottom deck 1 thing. So you go from 2 bodies to 1, and then they have 2, and then you do, like, for example, Kid, Gordon, bottom deck, play something else, and then you go to a bigger hand, to a bigger like board again. It's like really this pace of going back and forth, but it is really going to be a matchup where you want to control the board. If you control the board, you control the pace of the game. If you go for face and ignore board, you probably just lost the fucking game. You just want to always like assess the board and see how I'm going to get rid of this fucking board as fast as I can. You can also just swing 5s into their essential cards that they need to play, just so they give you hand cards. If they give you hand cards, there's less shit to play. Like we discussed earlier, most of our cards in our deck are going to be very crucial cards that we need. So if you force them out of their crucial cards, they'll probably not be able to play the thing that they wanted to play in the first place. So obviously, it's always going to be a win-win situation. If they're going to be Kid, Killers, Ains, or Gordons, those are still key cards, but they're not counter cards. So you're still winning by them giving you their board, and you're still winning if they give you hand cards, because they're really important cards. So it's that kind of situation where you need to be like, okay, fuck, my opponent just swing 5 with his Ein to my Ein. am I really going to give up my queen or my law in this matchup to save this card? And is there more strings coming? It's like these a lot of things that you need to keep in mind when you're going to do this, because it's very important that you get this decision right, because if you remove a card that you need later in the game, this is going to bite you in the ass. So you need to be sure like what you're going to be discarding is something that you're not going to need later down the line, or it's something that you're going to use on your next turn. Ending game is always going to be very hard here, mostly due to the fact is that you're probably going to be bottom decking so much that you probably are still going to be hovering at the 4 to 6 down range, which is not impossible. It's just going to be a bit harder, right? Because whenever you're going to play into any other matchup, you're probably, when you're going to start planning for your end game, you tend to like not use your Don's leader effect as much, so you want to stack up Dawn. You know, like when I end games, I like to be at like 6 to 8 Dawn, so I have a lot more swings with like 7Ks. You know, is that sort of thing that you want to keep in mind. But yeah, so it's always the hardest decision to make. Be sure if you're gonna go for a game, you can do the job. If you're not certain, just clear board and swing maybe 1 or 2 things at face. At least make it easier for you going on to your next turn. Because if you can't like decide to go for a game and then you can't win, because then you just fucking lose, you know. Your key cards here are always going to be your Reijus, your 5 Cascades, your Kid and Killers, Fire Fist, and Queen. Bonclay here is fucking useless. I would if I counter, this is probably the first thing I'm countering with. Because why play Bonclay when you have Vine? That's pretty much it. I think I've made my point there. So yeah, our penultimate deck is Enel. Enel, in my honest opinion, is our hardest matchup. You ideally want to go first, but second to Steel Curve. You hard mulligan for Sanji. Sanji is going to be insane here. Sanji is going to be what stops your opponent from being able to Kitatsu anything you have on board. Because if you're at 4 life and they 8 cast Katakuri and now you're at 5 life, they can pop Kid, they can pop Queen, they can pop anything except Sanji, and they don't care about that one. So yeah, you want to see your fucking Sanji or you're gonna fucking lose. But yeah, what you want to do is you want to always keep him at a 2 life total. So that way Ace doesn't get rush and Yamato doesn't give him a life. So let's hover over Ace. This is what Ace does. If you want to pause the video and read it through. And then we have 9 cost Yamato, and that's what Yamato does. So yeah, you want to keep him at 2 life, just so they will not be able to kind of like benefit from their high end as much. I mean, there's still a problem, but you want to build your board up to a place where either I do a very impactful turn from 2 life, because they're still gonna sack a shit ton of triggers and it's gonna be so annoying. But if you have a big enough board and you have enough pressure to put on board to the point where they can't really do much, then you're kind of chilling. But you need to, if they're probably gonna survive the onslaught of hits that you're gonna swing at them. Because sometimes you need to swing like 6 times, 7 times to maybe end the game. And the key part of that sentence was maybe end the game. But yeah, super trigger heavy. It's like that's basically runs like 12 boss monsters and like 10 plus Thunderbolt triggers plus Bages. So it is a very hard matchup. I myself am still learning it as I go. Honestly, it's not an easy matchup. I'm still having trouble with it, but I'm coming up on like some answers, but nothing's really conclusive. Like my win rate really improves, but like it's still very hard to maneuver through that. So whenever you're playing against Enel, it is crucial that you maintain a hand size and your board even more than your hand, and you're just gonna pray to hope to hit your Queen and Reijus here, because you need to draw. Because if it's a good Enel, he's gonna starve you, and Enel does a really good job at starving you, so you're gonna be in a lot of trouble if he's gonna go for the starve angle. Yeah. that's pretty much it though. I mean, I guess the tech cards here would be Sanji. You hard mulligan for Sanji always. I could take a hand with 4 irons in the Sanji probably, because you just need that so badly. And your 4-cost blocker law. Maybe you can like snipe some aces or some of his high end. But yeah, that's pretty much it though. Yeah, because Enel is a deck where he can play no bodies from hand, and the matchup would still be pretty hard. In terms of like Thunderbolts and stuff, I mean, obviously, like he'll play like 1 or 2 cards, but like he can win with just 1 Gadatsu because it's gonna be a very hard matchup. Is what I'm trying to say. Our last deck is going to be Moria. I have personally played against 2 Morias so far in OP07, and the game plan pretty much stays the same, except now they have Nightmare Luffy, and that's not something I've seen being played in our games. Maybe it's for another matchup, but the game still pretty much feels the same. You want to go first? The deck got hurt by the removal of Great Eruption, so your earlier game is a bit nicer. It's still a bit finicky. It's kind of still the same plan as EP01. If you plan to overwhelm the board and like you keep doing it in a way where they can't answer it for 1 turn, and then you keep that momentum, you're probably gonna win the game. You're still gonna do the same plan as you would with Lucci, where you KO any bottom deck anything that can KO on play. So your Brooks, your Luccis. That's pretty much it, I think. Absalom's is also a big one. Perona's gonna be a bitch to go through, but it's something that's in the deck and in the game, so you're just gonna be ready to trash some cards from hand. But yeah, I'd say hand size is crucial, and you ideally want to go for board presence rather than life, but you still want to start dwindling their life down slowly. You always want to get your opponents down to 2 lives, so your Kitten Killer is on online, and then you can maybe use that little bit of oomph to kind of like finish off clearing the board and such. But yeah, that's what I think. That's pretty much the end of my video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any more ideas on what we should do or stuff like that, just let me know. I am now working on a BDoffy video. I'm almost ready. I'm still playtesting, and I'll be able to give my conclusive thoughts on BDoffy very soon. I don't think I'll do an extensive matchup guide because I don't feel like I'm experienced enough for myself to do that. I'll maybe try and do a collab with someone. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my video, and thank you very much, guys, and much love, and stay awesome. Peace.